friend. Welcome back to Brianna's Bookshelf, where I keep you up to date with how my annual goal of becoming a reader is going based on how many books I have read in a month. March is over, it is officially April, and that means it's time for a reading update, and I'm going to share with you all of the books that I have finished this month. Don't get too excited. There's not as many as my excitement level might lead you to believe, but I did better than last month. I did read more than 2 books. However, little caveat here, I've listened to most of them. I was the queen of audiobooks this month, and it actually helped me be really productive when it came to my reading, my book consumption goal, alongside other things that I needed to do around the house. I used audiobooks from both Audible and Scribd, not sponsored by the way, to help me reach my goals this month, and it was tremendously helpful. So let's start with the first book that I actually read physically first. If you saw my April goals video, you'll know that one of my daily habits that I want to implement is the Miracle Morning, which means in order to refresh my memory on what the Miracle Morning was, I reread the Miracle Morning. Now, full transparency, I read this in a way that you do the quick skim and pick up all of the information. I sat down and read this in literally an hour. Now, it is only 120 pages. It's a short, easy read. It's an even shorter and easier read if you've read it before and you did a nice job of highlighting things the last time you read it. So there were some things that he's going into his backstory, and I was like, yeah, dude, I know your backstory. I don't need it anymore. So I skimmed through until I got to the actual concepts that I needed to understand and needed a refresher on in order to actually implement the Miracle Morning, which is my big challenge for the month of April. I'm going to do the 30-day Miracle Morning challenge and share it with you. So I did read this. It was a 1-day read, so do I get extra credit for that or half credit for it? I don't really know, but this is a book that I have read. It is by Hal Elrod. If you are somebody looking for a morning routine inspiration type book, this is actually a really great one. Actually, I'm going to give myself credit for one more hard copy book. It's not quite done, but I'm almost done with it as of the last day of March, so I'm going to give myself credit for it anyway, and that is I read Woman Code. It is not here because it is downstairs, and adding it in here is an afterthought, but Woman Code by Alicia Vitti is the book that started me on the whole cycle syncing thing. Now, if you'll notice, the books that I have read this month all entirely correspond with goals that I'm going after. So if you went and saw my quarterly refresh video, you know that one of my health focuses, my health goal focus for the second quarter, one of them is leaning in heavily to cycle syncing. And I got into cycle syncing through being introduced to Alicia Vitti. So first I went through and I reread Woman Code in the month of March, and then in the month of April, I'm reading her secondary book, which is more about Woman Code is more about fixing your hormonal problems and explanations as to why you have them. In the Flow is her second book. It's the book I'm going to read this month, and that is about cycle syncing in its entirety, assuming you have, it talks about some of the things that, fixing your hormones, but this is assuming that, okay, you're regular and you just want to lean into cycle syncing. In the Flow is the book for you. So I'm reading that in April, but I am almost done with Woman Code. I'll be done by the end of the weekend with Woman Code in March. So I get credit for Woman Code. I highly recommend it for anybody who's thinking about cycle syncing or has problems with hormone balance in their cycle and things like that. 10 out of 10 would recommend. The first audiobook I listened to, again, tied to some of my goals, is the Iodine Crisis, and this falls under Lindsay Made Me Do It. She told me about how I should add iodine to my life and why, and here, Brianna, read this book. And I didn't want to read it because, well, I didn't want to purchase it. I'll be totally honest with you. I didn't want to purchase it, but I have a Scribd membership, and they had the document uploaded on Scribd. It didn't read like a well-formatted ebook. It read like a document that you had to zoom in on and do all sorts of weird stuff. And I was like, no. So I looked, and it turns out they had the audiobook, which was super helpful because I just wanted to kind of listen to and hear the information for the first time. I didn't necessarily have have to sit down and read the thing. So I popped that in, turned it on 1.2 speed and listened to that while I was doing my housework. And I breezed through it super quick, got the information that I wanted, and started on iodine, which, as you know, is another health thing that I'm focused on implementing in Q2 for my goals. So the Iodine Crisis, for those of you that have been hearing me talk about iodine for the last couple of weeks and are like, what, why, how? That is the book that you want to pick up. It is the book that has the information that you are looking for beginning reasons to look into iodine supplementation. I take no credit for having any of the knowledge. I got it all from this book and from what Lindsay told me. So there's that. The Iodine Crisis, if you're interested in dipping your toe into the iodine thing, that's a great place to start. Another audiobook that I listened to, can you tell that Audible had a sale this month and I had credits to spend? They were having a 2-for-1 sale, so I literally looked through all of their 2-for-1 stuff and found 6 books that, 6 books? 4 books? 4 books, I think. I think I got 4 books for the price of 2 credits. So the Obesity Code happened to be one of them. And the only reason that I read or listened to the Obesity Code is because I know that it is a book that a lot of people, especially in the fitness and nutrition content creation industry, talk about, lean on. It is a book that commenters like to try and throw at me, especially when I say things like, I like to eat carbohydrates. I decided that it would be a wise idea for me to at least listen to it. Since it was on sale, I wanted to consume the content so I had the knowledge to go forward in an educated manner next time I was faced with any information from Dr. Jason Fung. Dr. Jason Fung is the person who wrote the Obesity Code. Now here's the thing. I thought that there was going to be most of the stuff in the book that I didn't agree with. And it turns out there's actually a lot of stuff in the book that I do agree with, which I thought was super interesting. And I'm going to do, later on, I'm going to do a little video that kind of just like summarizes my thought on the Obesity Code. But what I thought was going to happen was information on intermittent fasting and why keto is the end-all be-all for dieting. And it wasn't like that at all. He focused more on intermittent fasting than he did on the keto diet. The keto diet was kind of an afterthought as to like, here's why we're not losing weight and how to lose weight and the formula and whatever. And oh, leading a life that is more ketogenic might help you, is kind of what it was. But his primary focus was actually on intermittent fasting and meal timings and the science behind everything. And I'll dip into a little bit about what he talked about here. Basically, he blames obesity and weight gain and inability to lose weight on insulin specifically, which made my mind go crazy because a lot of members of my family are diabetic and take insulin, and those members of my family are also overweight and have a hard time losing weight. So it got my wheels turning that I was like, well, but if this is the problem, why are we giving it to diabetics as a solution? Like, it was a whole thing. It was a whole thing that just really got me thinking, but the science behind it made so much sense. Now, here's what was missing. And again, I'll talk about this later, but I got to talk about it a little bit now. He talks mostly about intermittent fasting, but not in the way that we think of intermittent fasting as like a 16-hour fast, 8-hour eating window. He doesn't mention like the day-to-day stuff. He's more tied into the 24-hour fast, the 36-hour fast, or even the week-long fasts. Like, he's into like the big chunk of time fasts and doesn't actually touch the 16-8 intermittent fasting, which I thought was really interesting. The other thing he did do, and I waited, and unless I missed it, what I heard was he mentioned one study done on humans, specifically on postmenopausal women. And nowhere in the book, unless I missed it, does he talk about a study that he did or that was done on women who get their periods. Why is this important? Because going back to Alicia Vitti and all of the hormone information for menstruating women, it has been found that intermittent fasting is actually not good for people who get periods. So that I was waiting anxiously to see if he said something about menstruating versus postmenopausal women, and he mentions the studies being done on postmenopausal women and men, but not on menstruating women. So take that information with what you will. But bottom line was, I'm glad I consumed the content. I feel like I have more knowledge. There are pieces of it that I'm actually taking and implementing into my life, and there's a solid chunk of it that I'm choosing to just let go. I've consumed the knowledge, it's not for me, and I'm gonna let it go. And that is how you should approach every single diet and self-help book that you ever read, ladies and gentlemen. Take what's worth it to you and leave behind what doesn't serve you. And that is exactly what I'm doing with the Obesity Code. Am I glad that I listened to it? Absolutely. So those are the 4 books that I technically consumed almost to completion. I have one more to add. I am in the middle of Kelly LeVeque's Body Love via audiobook on Scribd, because after listening to things like the Obesity Code and whatnot, it got me inspired to go back to Kelly LeVeque stuff, because a lot of the stuff that was talked about in Obesity Code ties into, in a pretty solid way, the stuff that Kelly LeVeque teaches on nutrition and blood sugar balance and things of the like. And since we all know that I love Kelly LeVeque and her nutritional philosophy, I went back to that book as a refresher. Again, as an audiobook, so it's not taking up my reading time sitting doing nothing. I'm listening to it while I'm out driving and cleaning the house and things like that. So to recap, the books that I read are as follows, and I will have them all linked down below for you. The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. The Iodine Crisis, I can't remember who the author is, but it'll be down below. Woman Code by Alicia Vitti, one of my favorites. The Obesity Code by Dr. Jason Fung. A lot of codes happening this month. And Body Love by Kelly LeVeque. Again, I only technically read 2 of those books, but audiobooks count, and I'm giving myself the grace to allow audiobooks to count because it allows me to multitask. And right now, in this season, that's what I need. So I still got through quite a few books this month, which makes me really, really happy. Next month, my mission is to for sure read In the Flow, which, like I said, is the 2nd book by Alicia Vitti. I also am in the middle of a fiction book from Book of the Month called How to Marry Keanu Reeves in 90 Days. And that's all I've got so far. I don't know where else the spirit will move me to read. I do have to finish the book, what is it called? Breaking Free of Body Shame. I'm in the middle of that. I started it and I never finished it. So maybe those 3 will be the primary focus of my reading goal for the upcoming month. And who the heck knows where my audiobooks are going to take me. I've got some good ones in the Audible queue. Oh, my husband and I are also listening to Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, but I don't think that counts because I've listened to that book already. So, and read it and seen the movie a million times. It's just, it's the process of introducing my husband to Harry Potter books. So he, for the first time, is in the middle of book 6. I'm listening to it with him. So that's all I've got, my friends. Let me know in the comments below, what books did you read this month and would you recommend them? I'm always looking for new books to add to my to-be-read list. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up as it really does help me out. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join the Diva and the Divine community. We would love to have you. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care, and I will see you in my next video.